All right, first I want to thank you for coming back. There was some question yesterday whether some of you would come back or not. Not because of the wonderful content, but whether you would be invited back or not. And we decided to invite you all back. Thank you for leaving your badges behind. We appreciated that. The tweets were incredible. Thank you for that. And the Facebook stuff. We should actually give ourselves a round of applause for all the social media. I understand we were trending on Twitter, which I guess is a good thing. So someone's happy about that. The people at the Ascend Network up at Aspen, we got an email yesterday talking about how it was blowing up. Something was happening in Sarasota. They knew Ann was here, and they were just hoping it wasn't bad pictures of Ann or something popping up on the screen. It wasn't. They were all good. Someone did tell me yesterday that I failed to introduce myself. Thank you for that feedback. I am John Annis. I'm the Senior Vice President of Community Investment at the Community Foundation of Sarasota County. For those of you who I failed to introduce myself to yesterday, and an Ascend Fellow, I remain all of those things for today. I want to talk now about surveys. So many of the conferences you go to, I'm sure you get a survey at the end, and probably many of you delete it. That would not be a good idea for this one. Our goal is not to get 50% of the surveys back. We'd like to get 100% of the surveys back. We're not going to ask you about the food or the temperature. Definitely not the temperature, because there was a lot of whining about the temperature yesterday. So there'll be no questions about the temperature. We're going to ask you some big questions about what happened here, who wasn't here that should have been here, what action you're going to take in the future. Take a little time. You should get that, Murray, on Thursday. You should get the survey on Thursday. We'd love to have those back on Monday. So fill it out quickly. We're going to use that for our next steps, the action that we're going to take as a result of your surveys. The breakout sessions today. First I want to thank you again for being so nice to my fellow fellows back there. They have said great things about you, so thank you for being so nice to them. Little bit about today. When you go to the breakout sessions, you'll have one of our fellows and a local expert that'll be leading the sessions. This is a great opportunity for you to participate. I hope that you don't think they have the answers to everything. So they're not going to solve world hunger in the breakout session. So that's not why they're here. They're going to share and keep the conversation going with you. So we want to have a good conversation. The other part is you all have been pent up here with lots to share. Tom Tryon talked a little about this yesterday. When you get to the breakout session and it's your turn to talk, everyone knows how wonderful you are. Dial that back just a little bit, all right? You don't have to be as wonderful in the breakout session. Just be good, right? Say what you have to say. Let's have a conversation going back and forth. Don't dominate the time, because 75 minutes is going to go pretty fast, and there's lots to share. You will be traveling with a group. So if you have a red button on the back of your tag, you're going to be in the red group, blue group, green group. We'll tell you where to go. I suggest when you get to the next room, don't sit with someone you know. Sit near someone you don't know. So let's build some social capital as we do these breakout sessions. Sit with people you don't know and start thinking about what could we possibly do together to move forward this 2Gen strategy. Those are the kind of conversations I hope you're having. And talking about the wonderful music, how great the conference went, but more about what can we do 2Gen. Interviews. Charles and his team will be doing interviews today with some of our other panelists that have been here and other participants. We'd love to get you on video. There'll be easy questions, I promise. Get on video because when we put this all together, we want to know, one, that you were there and what you were thinking, so we can play this back over and over again in the future. We'll be using little snippets of it. Let's see if I'm forgetting anything else. Anna's going to come up in a minute and do kind of a check-in and do a little recap and touch on a few of the items from yesterday. And then we really are going to leave and get started on these breakouts. And I'm anticipating they will be wonderful. We're going to switch back to the old model. If they're not wonderful, it's Kirsten's fault and Ann's fault, because and Sarah, actually, who helped to design the breakout sessions. So I'm going to deflect anything bad that happens from this point on to them. And anything good, you can still bring my way. Do we have any questions about the flow today after Ann? We'll have another check-in right before we break out. I know, thank you, some of you invited other people to come today. We're going to try to make that work. The rooms are set up for about 60, I think. If it's a little tight in there, it's tight. Just be friends, right? Get in close when we break out. If you stay here in the gym, you're going to have lots of space. When you go to the other rooms, it's going to be a little tighter, but we're going to make it work. So enjoy the time together. I want to not waste any more time here and have Ann come up and kind of do a quick recap for us and a check-in, and I think we're going to change a slide for her, potentially. Yeah, we're going to tell everyone what the room's right after we do the Ann thing.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. All right, this is good. So we were sort of taking some bets. We thought, well, we have some drop-off the next day because this is really about getting to work. And no, this is great. This is really great. If I were to say one thing as I'm going to be heading back home tonight, the power of collaboration and the interest in being part of this conversation in this community is incredibly strong. It is deep. It is diverse, and it is real. And that is your opportunity ahead of you. So you all have incredibly busy lives, and we are working today until about 2 o'clock today. So let's, as John said, really focus, really take advantage of it, and also really remember to have open mind and open heart. So I do have a couple thoughts from yesterday to share, but I want to also take us back. And I would encourage you all maybe later tonight when you have a quiet moment after you've had dinner, put kids to bed, or steal a quiet moment, go back and read Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie's The Danger of a Single Story. I think it's very important when we stay in action-oriented modes to always pause for reflection. And again, when I think about real leadership, it's from reflection to results. And because as you're going to be going into these breakout sessions, just as John said, as you might be in an economic supports one, but you might be an early childhood person. So remember the danger of a single story. You might not know the perspective of somebody who starts with a family thinking about financial education, because you're actually thinking about early childhood development. So what would it mean to see the world from that person's perspective? Because I think when we're thinking about collaboration, it's always about seeing, it can be the danger of a single story of a family, but also of a partner. And so I really want to have us go in today to fully optimize it, hearts and minds wide open to learn and strengthen for each of you as leaders. Because again, you are leading teams and organizations and communities in all the diverse ways that you touch. So along those lines, I just had 3 kind of quick takeaways from yesterday, and I wanted to just leave with a couple sort of opportunities going forward. So first, I think one of the things I just want to share was the importance of you all have come together to make sure when you kind of are leaving here on your future work that you really kind of own and articulate that you do have a shared North Star. And if your shared North Star is really about creating an intergenerational cycle of opportunity and thinking truly, what does it mean for families to have economic security, educational success, health and well-being, and be socially vibrant and connected? What can that look like? And so I think we have up on the screen, we have the, sort of the core pieces of that. And so, in this room, be thinking about what are the core components that really relate to you, because all of those are strategies that lead to the North Star. And so, I'm going to call it a couple names, but we could be here, I could name everybody. But when I think about, for example, the work of Harvest House and the work that Harvest House is doing around economic supports and hunger. The Sarasota Housing Authority, thinking about the importance of housing platforms. Suncoast Technical College in the post-secondary. Salvation Army on the wraparound services. Alta Vista and 40 Carats at the educational level. Visible Men Academy and the Women's Resource Center are also coming at this with an equity and a gender lens. You know, I could probably talk about all of you, and I was going to do an up and down exercise to see like which component you worked with, but I think we probably should keep with the timing. But be thinking about which components do you see your work in, and who are the partners that you think you could be working with that will help you have better outcomes for children and families. And so the second piece is, as you're doing this conversation, and I think we've got a great multi-sector representation in this room, from on-the-ground innovators, nonprofit leaders, philanthropy, the public sector, is I want us to really remember and to keep front and center the strength and resilience of families. We had some voices coming through on the video, and maybe in the follow-up conversations we can bring in more parent voice for this. But really be thinking about, one of the things I think in DC is the most dangerous trap is sometimes say, oh, it's the whole bootstrap story, just have a family do it all on their own, or it's a big government solution. It's neither. I mean, or it's not an either or. It's really looking at how you tap the strength of families and really make systems and services be effective and respectful and strategic. So let's keep that strength and resilience of family of voices in here. So when I think about yesterday, the three things that popped up was, one, you guys are on fire with great action happening. When we did that celebration piece with Kirsten and John doing a wonderfully affectionate competition thing going back and forth, but hearing it pop up, the good things you have happening here, you have no shortage of action. My challenge is to you to connect the dots so that your action is really going to be a wave and a force for change. And to think about that perhaps through the 2-gen lens as it's helpful. We had a chance to go pretty deep on reimagining education through the 2-generation lens. And so when you think about the wonderful work of Alta Vista that has happened, let's make sure that work is really connected to the broader educational picture. It's been a thoughtful thing saying from children to parents. How does that really connect to what the education system from early childhood, K-12, and on up to the higher ed community here? Let's stick with that wonderful reimagination. And then we also had a little time to go into housing, reimagining housing. This is something at the national level. We are seeing tremendous innovation and solution work. There is a body of conversations at the national level that is saying, let's rethink public housing. I mean, public housing was really a big mark coming out of the war on poverty. Some places it's worked, and some places it's really been wildly outdated, shall I say. And we have various models and I think you all have a great resource in the wonderful Bill Russell here and what you all are doing, and I think he probably didn't toot his horn enough about what it meant to do the turnaround work he did. I think that was pretty amazing. But when you think about how do you also reimagine housing so that within that resident services and case management really goes to coaching, goes to the strength of families. And Aisha Nyandoro talked about being radically resident-driven. There's also a body of work funded by large foundations like the Gates Foundation, bringing sort of school superintendents and public housing authorities together. So my colleague Sarah Haight, who's going to be closing out today, has access to a lot of great promising programs that can, I think, help you accelerate some of the opportunities to rethink housing through a 2-gen lens. So, with that said, it was a powerful day. You went deep on a couple levers. John and team have really laid out a wonderful morning and put his fellows to work, which I think is fantastic. And so, just really looking forward to the day. So 2 promises you have from Ascend, and again, my colleague Sarah Haight will be following up. But as I've really encouraged you to think about what a shared North Star could look like for you all in Sarasota, is we have developed an outcomes framework that looks at whole family development, and it's been developed in partnership with some of the leading researchers and academics, practitioners and policymakers, and it's been gone through 3 extensive peer reviews, of which it also included a peer review with parents. This is a great document. It is a dynamic living document. And so we have a recorded webinar that will give you access to this, but it's a really phenomenal tool that can help you guide your work so that you're really sort of hitting the right North Star. And Sarah can talk more about that later. And then the second thing is in November of next year, we will be hosting a 2-gen Practice Institute, and really looking at bringing community teams and organizational teams that might like to come together that are very interested in either accelerating, deepening, or have come with real readiness to do 2-gen approach work beyond the just the organizational level. So that's something that we are really looking as we build the national field, is how are we helping build community teams to learn together. So that's just a bit of what we're up to. Without question, because I'm going to be quietly listening in today and then I go home tonight, I just really wanted to say a heartfelt thank you to all of you for allowing me to be part of these conversations. I want to just tip my hat to all of you to the great work. There is a powerful spirit of we can make a difference and we can give and work together. I think the Community Foundation of Sarasota County has been in this conversation, stewarding it, Roxy, since you started here. And I can't wait to, I'm not going to wait 5 years for the next thing, but I'm thinking what you're going to do in the next 5 months, the next year. And I do think this is a leading model for community foundations. So I want to say thank you to Roxy, Kathy, the entire board, Terry. I also think you're very lucky. You have an incredible philanthropic community. I never know, like, it's not my business to come into town and name names, but there are many of the philanthropists I've had a chance to meet who are sitting in this room with sleeves rolled up, ready to talk and walk with you. That is a very special thing. And so I want to say thank you to all of those donors who've been doing this work and letting us learn and work with you. Thank you for your work. So more to come. Of course, Charlotte, you're our angel. We'll let you stay in Sarasota, but we still always want to be more time with you. But Charlotte, thank you. And to John Annis and Kirsten Russell, thank you for your hard work. So let's get on with the show.
All right, look at the back of your badges. There should be a color on the back of your badges. All right, on the front of your badges. Everyone's so critical. Put it in your survey, all right? Put it in your survey. John didn't know where the buttons were, all right? Thanks, Kirsten. That was Kirsten's fault. I think she somehow. I'm not sure how yet, but it was. All right, red. Red badges, raise your hand. You are the economic supports group, red badges. You will be going to the front room. What is the front room? Out. Take a right, walk down the hall, someone will direct you into the front room. You will be traveling together, red badges. You don't have to leave right now. Blue badges, raise your hand. Wow, what a group. All right, blue badges. You are gonna go to the cafeteria, which is straight across. When you walk out, go straight across. You will stay together. The green, did I say green already? Green is last. Sorry, green badges, raise your hand. All right, that's the rest of you. You're going to stay in this room, the cafeteria, as we've decided to call this. Or no, we're calling this the gym, right? This is the gym. Stay in the gym. If you don't have a color, there's a few of you that don't have a color on your badges, travel with a friend. Just go with a friend to wherever you're going, all right? I'm reminding, so yesterday we were exploding on Twitter. Today, not so much. So Twitter's down today. It's okay when you're in your breakout sessions to tweet. No one's going to think you're working on your emails or anything. Tweet away. We want more tweets.
Point that Mary Kay just brought up. And so when we talk about social capital,
strata, socioeconomic background often don't have that
It
much.
made me think for a second, and just a little quick crash course in social capital.
Hi, we're here at the Two Generation Conference. Welcome. What's your name?
My name is Barry Levinson, and I'm with the Sarasota Bay Rotary Club.
And Barry, what made you want to come to the Two Generation Conference?
We formed a strategic planning committee at our club to determine if we could find something, and particularly with youth, that can make a significant difference in the community with the limited club fund resources, but with the brain power of people that have many of them at the end are retired in their careers, that have a background in business, and to see if we could apply any of our knowledge to help foster a better system in Sarasota for education.
And is there a particular component of the two-generation approach that you're interested in?
We don't know. That's why we came. And we were pleased to be able to be included as a Rotary Club in this event.
And did you learn anything special yesterday?
I think we had a lot of exposure, and we're looking forward to today's session, which is going to be more of a hands-on discussion. We had some ideas that we threw out in a brainstorming, but nothing solidified in terms of exactly where we would fit in best with the program.
Well, thank you for joining us today, and I hope you get as much out today as you did yesterday.
I hope so, too.
Good morning. Hi, Ann. Why don't you introduce yourself?
Sophia, it's a pleasure to be with you. Ann Silverberg Williamson. I'm the Executive Director to Utah's Department of Human Services.
And you were on our panel discussion yesterday. Tell the audience a little bit what you talked about yesterday.
You know, it really is a pleasure to bring the mission work of our commitment in Utah to serve children, youth, families in their homes, schools, and communities, recognizing the value of a two-gen approach.
Good. And what approach do you most appeal to you in terms of the three components of two-gen?
In Utah, we recognize that economic supports and security, in addition to social capital and educational attainment, are so vital but most successful if we approach them from a proactive, preventative manner.
Good. And what do you think you like to see us accomplish today with the different approach we have with the workshops?
I'm excited through the workshops to be talking about real tactical strategies for breaking the cycle of intergenerational poverty.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. I'm looking forward to hearing you.
It'll be a lovely
Nice
day.
meeting you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good morning, Katrina. Why don't you introduce yourself?
I'm Katrina Bellamere, the Executive Director at Family Partnership Center, and we provide parenting education to strengthen families and prevent child abuse in Manatee and Sarasota counties.
And why did you want to attend the conference?
I think it's just a powerful opportunity to get a lot of people involved in the efforts to help both parents and children and make a really significant impact.
Are you doing any part of the two-gen approach now with your organization?
Yes, some of our long-term programs are an in-home program to help parents, as well as a musical motion program to help parents and preschoolers and help with, getting them ready for school and things like that. We've also started a pilot program with the Community Foundation called Pathways to Prosperity, and we're helping families, 5 families hopefully, in 3 years get out of poverty and stop that generational cycle.
And what do you hope to take away from today's conference?
I think the unity between all the organizations and collaboration and really focusing on what the families need. And I think what was really powerful yesterday was seeing them talk a lot about why it's important to listen to the families. And so it's not about us, it's not about us trying to get our point across, but really listening to them and focusing on what their needs are. And I think that's a wonderful takeaway, and I was really encouraged to see everybody on board with that.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us. Good morning, Cameron. Why don't you introduce yourself?
Good morning. I'm Cameron Hodgins. I am the CEO of the Glasser Schoenbaum Human Services Center, and it is an honor and a privilege to be here today.
Now, the Glasser Schoenbaum Center is already involved in some ways with two-gen. Tell us a little bit about what you're doing.
Sure, absolutely. We are a 5-acre campus that has 14 buildings and houses 18 nonprofits. And those nonprofits are all over the map insofar as what they offer to the community in age and demographic and services. We have everything from pediatric health care of the Children's Health Department to AARP and employment services. Early Learning Coalition is there, the Literacy Council. JFCS has a homelessness prevention program for families. Gulf Coast Legal Services is there. We just have a wide range of services offered in one place on one campus, which is really nice for families in need who maybe don't have access to reliable transportation and need multiple services in one location.
And what do you want to get out of the summit today?
Well, one thing that I learned yesterday, which was day one, was that our housing authority needs wraparound services to their community. And our campus is literally maybe 5-6 blocks away from their largest location. So I want to talk to Bill Russell about Glasser Schoenbaum becoming a service provider to that community in particular, mostly because of the geographic proximity, but also because I really do believe that our organizations on campus have a lot to offer to our surrounding communities.
There are several there's several organizations involved in 2Generation. Are there any of them you particularly collaborate with?
Oh, yes. On my campus, Healthy Start Coalition, which is a state-funded program. Every county in the state has a Healthy Start. And what they do is really help pregnant mothers and new mothers become better mothers and really excel at their new profession. And I can say that because I just had a baby a few months ago, and it certainly is a full-time job and a profession. So Sean Ewan's the executive director there, and her staff really believe in the 2Generation approach of the child is not well unless the mother is well. And I love to watch what she does for that population.
Well, thank you for joining us, and enjoy today's conference, and I know you're going to make a great contribution.
Thank you. Thank
Bye.
you, Sophia. Bye-bye.
Hi, here we are at the 2Gen conference here at the Boys and Girls Club of Sarasota. Could you please tell me your name?
My name is Danielle Singleton, and I'm with Visible Men Academy.
That's great. And could you tell me what interested you in coming to the conference?
Well, my school is very involved with 2Gen work, and I just knew that I had to be here. It's such important to have a wraparound service with our students, our families, our community. And as soon as I saw the agenda, the concept, and everything, I just knew that I, along with my school, wanted to be a part of this.
That's fantastic. And can you tell me what school it is and where are you guys located?
We are Visible Men Academy. We are located in Manatee County. We are on 63rd Avenue in Bradenton, and we are all boys public charter school.
Oh, what grades do you serve?
We serve, we are a K through 8 school. Right now we serve kindergarten through 5th grade. Next year we'll be adding 6th grade.
That's fantastic. And although you're already doing 2-generational work, is there something that you learned specifically from the conference in the last 2 days that you guys think that you could implement in the school?
I really learned that this is a new concept to some people, and they're really gravitating towards it. It just makes perfect sense. Helping the family get better will in turn help our students get better. And I'm just learning new ideas from different organizations. There's so many service providers, nonprofits here, and I'm just so excited to learn even more today on the second day.
That's fantastic. It has been very exciting seeing all the providers come together and try to join together for one cause. Thank you so much for coming today.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm here with Derek Curse at the 2Gen conference here at the Boys and Girls Club of Sarasota. Could you tell me what organization you're with, Derek?
I work with Better Tomorrow Social Services.
And if I think of social services, I tend to think of housing and putting you in the economic support bubble of the 2Gen, but you do so much more. Could you just describe a little bit on a daily basis what you do?
Well, as the social services coordinators at Janie's Gardens Apartments, the range of services I provide in a 8-hour work shift goes from economic stability, but also goes to helping residents plan for the future, whether that's providing financial literacy classes, first-time home buyers classes, referrals for GED prep, or referrals for day-to-day services so far as mental health, financial assistance, and things of that nature.
So all of that you've told me so far tends to deal with the adults. What aspect do you have with the children on a day-to-day basis?
I also run an after-school program which focuses on helping the kids with their homework and also their overall academic achievement.
That's fantastic. And that seems to be in school time. Is there anything that you do for them during the summer?
Yes, we have a summer program as well, which also primarily focuses on improving their reading. Last summer, with the help of the Community Foundation, we were able to hire a teacher, primarily a reading coach, to help the kids improve their reading levels, but also improve all areas of academics. And that's a personal mission of mine, is help the kids improve their academics.
That's fantastic. So it seems like you're doing 2Gen work on a daily basis where you are.
Absolutely. Actually, when I came to the conference yesterday and I saw the clogs, I was like, I do all of that.
That's great. Is there something new that you learned in the conference that you didn't know before you came here?
Well, just that there is a system in place that coordinates everything that I do. Usually it's a kind of splintered process, but to see that there is a system in place with 2Gen that actually coordinates everything was very enlightening.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
Early on, 5 years ago, when Ann Mosley visited Sarasota for the first time, we were really excited with her message, and the approach, the 2Gen approach, really resonated with our board and my boss, Roxy, and our donors. It made sense. So we started our planning actually 4 to 5 years ago, saying this would be something we know we can do well in Sarasota because we have such a generous community. We have nonprofits that want to work together, that are really passionate about the work and also want to have the best outcomes possible. So as we started to have more and more conversations with our nonprofit partners and donors, we said we should plan something big in Sarasota. And a little bit of it was a case of let's do it at the right time. 2 years ago, Roxy went with Terry Vitale to the Think Exchange in Colorado, and they were blown away with how impactful it was. It was a big session, hundreds of people again talking about 2Gen, and their excitement was clear when they came back. And Roxy was like, we've got to do this. So that was 2 years ago. And I knew we should, and I wanted to do it too, but the timing was going to be really important. We started working with 7 to 8 nonprofit partners who were as excited as we were about the potential to do 2Gen work and use them as an advisory group and said, let's plan this well and let's figure out how we can really have an impact when we bring these people together. Bringing people together is only part of what we need to do. If this conference, as well as it has gone, doesn't lead to some type of impact or outcomes, then I will honestly be disappointed. The convening role that we played to bring this together would have never happened if not for that advisory group. The Boys and Girls Club, 40 Carrots, Family Partnership, the Early Learning Coalition. These were the Housing Authority, Salvation Army. As we met with those groups one-on-one and sometimes in a committee-type session, we said, if we do this summit, how can we make it work? And so we started putting together a list of names of people that we thought would be interested. I think we had a list of 700 or 800 people that we thought we will send this out and see if there's an appetite for it. And clearly there was. When we finally sent out the invitations, we received 250 responses in 5 days. So there were people that wanted to be here. We had worked with those nonprofit partners again and said, who are the right people? We don't need to preach more to the choir. So let's not invite a bunch of people here again that already get it and already want to do it. Let's get people that are either early adopters, that love the idea, but not quite sure how to apply it yet, or people on your board, or donors, or members of your staffs that really are going to have to adopt this approach if we want it to be successful. So we let them invite the people they thought were important. So they would reserve a table, and they would figure out the best candidates. And that worked very well. We held back 70 to 80 seats for kind of the people we knew wanted to be here, and we had to squeeze them in. So we really went on to a waiting list 5 days after announcing it. And because Kirsten Russell is so wonderful at this event stuff and everything else she does, in fact, she was able to work those people in. As someone dropped out, we worked someone else in. So no one was turned away. There were people who were calling after that never made it to the list when they started hearing about it that wanted to come, and we did have to tell those people, next time. But the excitement, I think, from the last 2 days is leading to more and more social media and emails and great coverage by you, Charles, thank you. And I know that we're going to have more of this, more conversation, and more exciting for me is more action as a result of this. I do want to first talk a little bit about that fellowship. So 2 years ago, I got an email saying that I had been nominated to be an Ascend Fellow, an Aspen Institute Ascend Fellow. And I thought this would be a great story that I'll be able to tell people someday that I was nominated. There was no chance I was going to actually be selected because it's a very competitive process, and there are some amazing folks doing work around the country that are really inspirational. So the nomination led to an application. The application eventually led to an interview. The interview went to the process was a very thorough process. Lots of great questions, and not questions like, what do you aspire to be? Questions like, how are you going to change the world? What's your big idea that's going to move this work forward? So when I found out that I had been selected, I was absolutely blown away. And then when I read the names of the other people that had been selected, I was humbled and thought a mistake had been made because there's really an exceptional group of fellows out there now. So I read all their bios. I was excited to get the opportunity to meet some of those people. I had actually read some of the work that many of those people had produced. So this is the kind of people that I'm in this fellowship with. And then the first flight out there at the Aspen Institute in Colorado, to get a chance to meet some of these people that I had just read about and find out that not only do they have amazing bios and they've received awards and they're really exceptional folks, but to find out personally why they're so passionate about this work and to meet them and spend time with them has been incredible for me. It's a life-changing experience, seriously, and that sometimes is overused. It really has been life-changing for me. So now we're deciding we're going to do the summit, and every one of those fellows would have fit in perfectly here in Sarasota. It was more about whose calendar would cooperate with our dates. So it's getting who's available. So the 3 that we heard from over the last couple days are all exceptional. But for my other fellows out there, any single one of them would have come in and the crowd would have been blown away. And I think to your question, having people of this caliber sharing and learning, and I think the learning part is valuable too. For those folks that have come here to Sarasota, when they go back out, back to Texas and back to Mississippi and back to Utah, they will be talking about some of the cool things we're getting to do here in Sarasota. So I love that back and forth. And we have another fellowship meeting in May, and I can't wait to talk to the other fellows about getting them down to Sarasota to do more of this. Right, and back to that advisory group, but what we did first at the Community Foundation, Roxy and myself and my team, we sat down and looked at the grant making we've been making. The Community Foundation for over 35 years has been making wonderful grants, and it was a very traditional model. What's something we want to work on? What do our donors care about? We'll send out an RFP. Nonprofits will tell us that they'd like to apply to do that work. This model is just a little bit different. Ann talks about the North Star. How are we going to impact vulnerable children and their families together? We're not going to probably do that through an RFP. We're going to sit down with partners and we're going to say, here are the outcomes we want to achieve. Here's the support we want to provide. How can we do that in a collaborative way and get the results that we all want to achieve? You may be an expert in early childhood, but as William was talking about, we want to start connecting that with college outcomes. So when do we start working that way? So we sat down and looked again at all our grant making and said, where are our donors spending their dollars? Do they have an appetite for this 2Gen work? So let's, a good example, maybe Habitat for Humanity. Wonderful organization that we love working with. Our donors have supported Habitat for many years. Using the 2Gen model, we just said to Habitat, we would love to have an opportunity to have one of our families get into one of your homes. So let's take a family from Alta Vista that is working in this wonderful Alta Vista Eagle Academy program and see if we can get a family into a home. They went through the normal Habitat process. Habitat did a wonderful presentation to the families at Alta Vista and said, this is what we do, this is why we do it, we'd love to have you apply. They worked through the process, and last year we had the applications go in, and it was so exciting and rewarding for me to watch teachers from Alta Vista build a house for one of the teacher aides at Alta Vista. So a single mom and her child moved into a home that was built by teachers at Alta Vista Elementary School. To get a chance to go there and watch that when they did the opening, the ribbon cutting, and watch that mom, how happy she was, it's something we were doing before. We just did it a little bit differently. We can actually see those results. Now, changing a system, that's really heavy work, and we've got to all do that together. But Aisha talked about this a bit yesterday, is one life. If we can change one life at a time, what difference can we make? And the excitement of our nonprofit partners who want to do similar work and work with other agencies to have those types of incomes is really inspiring. I do, and I think our board chair, Kathy Roberts, so nicely wrapped it up yesterday, where it's less about who's taking credit for this work and more about the work itself. One of the other fellows, and I'm not sure where it came from, but this idea of don't fall in love with the solution, or don't fall in love with your solution, fall in love with the problem, right? So let's focus on the problem, and then you may not be the best person to tackle that entire issue. Find some other people that can work on it with you, and let's celebrate that success together. And I think that is happening in Sarasota. John Thaxton spoke yesterday from the Gulf Coast Community Foundation. I love that these two foundations are working together on issues, and Manatee Community Foundation and the Patterson Foundation, and Dr. Pappas was there last night from the Selby Foundation. When we get funders working together with nonprofits, magic can happen. I think it's kind of taking the stairs a little bit. So the introduction has happened. People get the 2Gen thing. They've got a wonderful playbook to follow. So thinking about 2Gen. So that's the start. Is get them thinking about 2Gen. So that's kind of the approach. What's the 2Gen approach, which should lead to a 2Gen strategy? So now we know the approach. How are we going to strategically use that approach to have an impact on these families? That leads to programming. So there's a process we've got to go through. Understand 2Gen. Understand how we can apply it effectively at our agency or with others, and then actually do something. So the excitement for me is the number is great. It's wonderful to have this many people here. Again, it'll be dialing it back to say, all right, who's ready to do this work and who can do it really well? And that's what I look forward to, is working with these wonderful organizations to improve the lives for families and provide opportunities. And I think we're right there to do it. People are doing it already, but now doing it in a more strategic and a collaborative way is really, really exciting. Thank you very much. I think one of the things Roxy did very well is when we take on issues like this, pulling together a task force of community members and really smart folks. So Terry Vitale chairs our two-generation task force. They've taken the work of the Aspen Institute Ascend and they've looked at it nationally and said, let's see how that works in our region, in Sarasota and Manatee and Charlotte and DeSoto, and let's make some recommendations to our board. So they've been meeting for 6 months now. They will meet up through November, and then in November they'll present to our board and say, we think we have some strategies to use as we fund programs that will really be impactful. So those recommendations, they put in a lot of work. To be on that task force isn't show up and have a cup of coffee and smile and shake hands. They dig in deep, they roll up their sleeves, they meet with nonprofit partners, they go on site visits, and then they'll make the recommendations in November. And I know they're on the right track. They did a draft report coming up to the 2Gen Summit, and they've been actively participating in this summit right now, and they'll go back and I think make some changes to their recommendations before it goes to the board in November, and that also will be exciting.
The past 2 days have been this extraordinary opportunity with both some national leaders and innovators and Ascend Fellows coming here, mixing it up with the Sarasota talent and diversity. And so I am really looking forward to so much has already been accomplished in the past 5 years, both at the national level, the state level, and the local level. And for us, I think as we think about the game plan and the agenda moving forward, I think Sarasota has sort of wide open opportunity to be taking this from 1.0 to 2.0. And so I will be looking for what is the 2Gen action plan that is going to take advantage of all this collective interest and wisdom so we can link up early childhood, post-secondary education and workforce with the wraparound supports of economic assets and housing and transportation, thinking also about health and well-being, and then also ultimately really this social capital, because the folks sitting around the tables that are representing some of the best nonprofits, some of the philanthropists, the public sector, and saying, what if we reimagine housing through a 2Gen lens? What if we reimagine our education system as if it were to serve the whole family? I think ultimately, as I said this morning, if we can establish a shared North Star, and for us, we believe that's really about creating an intergenerational cycle of opportunity so that families, children, this generation and the next are succeeding together. Sarasota is going to be, I don't think it can get any more beautiful, but I think it can get more vibrant and more inclusive, and really looking at how families are moving forward together. And it's been such a pleasure and a privilege to be part of the conversation. And we travel across the country. I've been to a lot of different communities, from the Northwest to New England to the Midwest. Sort of across the country, we're seeing communities take up the 2-generation approach to really sharpen their work towards breaking the cycle of poverty. And I look forward to continuing to see the progress and innovation of Sarasota. Yeah, so that's a great question, and I think it's multi-sector collaboration is really important, and that's sort of an easy word to roll off the tongue. It is actually not so easy to do in practice, and so a couple key principles that I think undergird what does it mean to really collaborate versus talk about it at a high level is there's sort of an acknowledgement. There's not one organization or one strategy that is really going to be able to break the cycle of poverty. And so I think it's really important to both balance the boldness of, yes, we are going to tackle this big issue, but then really the pragmatism that I can't, or my organization can't do it alone. And so that's why when we talk a lot about the 2-generation approach, it really puts a population focus on that, saying, okay, if I'm sitting and working on child strategies or maybe adult parent ones, it means I have to grow my perspective a little bit to say, if I'm running an early childhood center, that child, the success of their mother and father, be it their education, their income, their health, has a profound and quantifiable impact on a child in the immediacy, but also even more importantly in the long-term impact. So when people are coming together around thinking about collaboration, there has to be a real kind of commitment to being open about how do I work with others, and because we talk a lot about that in the field, but when you really say what does it mean for a community college or workforce board to work with early childhood, they're different cultures, they have different metrics, but we are seeing a real appetite, a real interest, and a real energy coming from those conversations. And that ultimately is really about having the right kind of leadership. Because to make this work happen and hit the ground, it is about leadership. And that means there has to be a sense of generosity of leadership. I need to lead beyond my own institution or sphere of influence. It means also, how do you lift up with others, share credit whenever possible. I think if one of the big lessons the older I get is that if you don't need to take credit for something, it's probably going to go a lot further. Kind of kindergarten logic, but I think it's an important one at a leadership level. And then the third piece that's also really important is always engaging the families in this work, because they will inspire, they will educate, and they bring the resilience and the perspective. So keeping it, working with others, open mind, generous leadership, and truly engaging and partnering with the families. Well, I mean, I think for us, we're thinking of multiple platforms. So on some next steps, I mentioned briefly, but we are very excited. In early May, we're going to be partnering with the U.S. Department of Education on what does two-generation look like for kind of the future of education policy and practice. And so that's going to be a strategic opportunity to partner with this administration to think about everything from early childhood, K-12, higher ed, promise neighborhoods, and cross-agency work at the national level. I think we're also going to be having a two-gen funder exchange, bringing national foundations, family philanthropists who are really interested in rethinking their private investments. You know, just like we talk about what collaboration looks like for organizations on the ground to work, we're really interested in how foundations could say, we might have an education strategy, an economic strategy. How do they do it? So we're having a forum specifically targeting philanthropy and connecting them to the innovations in the work. So those are two things. And then the other two things that we have coming up are we are going to be hosting a two-gen practice institute that will be an sort of an immersion program for state and community teams to come and be exposed to a deep dive. It's almost going to be two-gen 3.0, and then bringing policy leaders together as well. So we're continuing on with helping communities, thinking about the policy, engaging philanthropy, and then also getting the frontline practitioners. So look for more. We also have monthly webinars that expose folks from across the country to what's the best and the most interesting work happening in the two-generation field. And it's an easy way, 1 hour, dial in. We're all open source so that there's no charge, but just to keep lifting up the innovations and keep the energy going in the field. I have a couple thoughts. So I think, again, the two-gen summit has been just a fantastic coming together of great minds and great energy. So if I were to sort of say, what are some of the guidance or the biggest opportunities? I think there is a chance you have some wonderful kind of pilots of two-gen innovation. How do you make sure those pilots are connecting to systems change, and how you think about scale here? And scale doesn't necessarily mean I'm going from 10 students to 1,000 students. You can also scale and approach an idea. And so to that end, I think how the community comes together and creates a two-generation action plan that can really help connect the model work and the pilot work, also fostering some broader collaborations among kind of anchor institutions like Suncoast Technical College, 40 Carrots, many others, but to come and really own a two-gen plan that is going to help not just add work, but really shift how people are working. I think it's really important to not say this is about the new program. This is about a fundamentally different way of working and collaborating and thinking about whole family. And then the last piece I would say, I think the energy that's coming out of Sarasota County and the surrounding counties is what is the next step to lift up and organize your work, but then also really thinking about it in terms of statewide partnership and opportunities. Because I do think we're excited to see some of the interest and energy growing statewide in Florida. Florida is such an important state, and so I would look forward to seeing some of that action.
Hi, we're here at the 2Gen conference at the Boys and Girls Club of Sarasota. Could you please tell me your name and the organization you're with?
Ashley Brown, and I'm the Executive Director of the Women's Resource Center of Manatee.
Fantastic. And could you give me an idea what brought you to the 2Gen Summit?
So I have had the pleasure of being at the Women's Resource Center for 13 years. I know, I don't seem
it's
that
a long
old,
time.
Right?
No.
And in that time, we've always known that the work we do with the women has a direct impact on their family. So the fact that the whole conversation of really looking at a two-gen approach and seeing it as the parents or the adults and the kids working together to make a stronger community is my happy place.
So this is something you've been working on for years already. So is there something that you've learned here at the conference that has made a difference that you will take with you and apply?
You know, I think the number of people that are really starting to embrace the idea of we have to be in the community doing the work we're doing. Let's not look at it as, let's expect the community to come to us as service providers, that we need to meet them where they are, where there's trust, where we just got out of a meeting on social capital. What does that look like, and how do we become part of their world and their opportunity, as opposed to trying to get people who need to conform to us? Does that make sense?
Yes, and connecting the providers and all the connection and everything that we have in the community.
Yes.
So if there was one thing that you could say to someone that has no idea what 2Gen is, what would you tell them right now?
I would say that when you look at your community, you need to look at it as families. And the family is the kids, the parents, the grandparents, aunts, uncles. And if the family is successful and is working to be economically sustainable, that's better for our whole community. So strong families, strong communities. But we can't look at it as just kids, just adults.
Right.
It's everybody.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks. I appreciate it.
So much to me, because when you have an idea, you spend a lot of time planning. You're hoping that you're bringing together the right programming, the right people. It's what I said the first day. We want to bring the right people together for the right conversations. And from that, what is aspirations to action? Ultimately, as we talk about this 2-generational lens, that we look at our work and we're looking at vulnerable families in our community. What I am so excited and jazzed about now that we're nearing the end of this 2-day 2Gen summit, when I say 2Gen, people know what I'm talking about. And if they look at the work they're doing through that lens, and then they think, okay, how am I going to do this, and who am I going to work with to make this happen? None of this happens by ourselves. I always say all of us are smarter than one of us. And what does that mean? Who else can I go tap into? Who else can I talk to? I always try to stop myself and say, Roxy, who else is doing this? Who can help this be successful? The most important piece of this, I think, is 2Gen lens. Ultimately, do we want to move 1,000 families to economic stability? And do we want to have every child reading at the 3rd grade level in Sarasota, Manatee County? If those are the goals I'm looking at, and those are the North Star, you know what? And that's what has driven me in this work, is I want every child reading at 3rd grade, because I know what that means for their future. They're not going to have economic challenges. I love William Sarasota said, the more you learn, the more you earn. And he said starting kindergarten. So as I think about what's our North Star, what are we trying to accomplish, look at it through the 2Gen lens. Who are the right partners to have the right conversations to ultimately get us there? It's not easy, but it's so much easier when you have that North Star, you know where you want to go, you figure out the right partners, the right conversations. Then that gets you, you're hopeful. What I love is that, and I used this word just a little bit ago, and think about this. We have in this room spark plugs. What do spark plugs do? They take an idea and they bring that energy, that enthusiasm, that smarts, and they bring other people along. And that's what we're going to have in here. This is a room full of spark plugs. And think about it. You need that, your car doesn't start if you don't have that spark. So you got to have that energy and that enthusiasm, and it's channeled in the right way. And you're thinking about, gosh, I want to get this accomplished. What can I do, and who can I do it with? So those are the way I have always felt in anything I've done that is absolutely critical. So to me, when I came to Sarasota 5 years ago and this privilege of leading our community foundation, it was knowing that how do you convene groups together? How do we really have that focus on the ultimate results that we're wanting to achieve? And think about the humanness of this. What has been so critical in this, the voices of everyone that we work with. We've talked a lot about the danger of a single story and making sure that we are always grounded in let's talk with our families. I am here a lot at Boys and Girls Club. I'm over at Alta Vista School. I'm talking to those moms and the respect and dignity that they deserve for wanting to get ahead in life is so powerful that I don't think we should underestimate having those conversations with those that we're working with, that we're all in this together. And it's not that I know better what you need to do, that I have the solution. When I began this work here in Sarasota, I met Ann Mosley, who's the executive director of Ascend at the Aspen Institute. I have learned early on who are the smartest, the brightest people that are doing this work, and that's Ann Mosley at the Aspen Institute. She has created a hub of national innovators, thinkers. We are so fortunate that John Annis, my colleague, is an Aspen Institute fellow. We got one right here. But have you seen, John wasn't up there because we got him every day. So what's been great is to tap into the best of the best thinking. They're provocative, they're pushing us, they're telling us what works. That is how you accelerate the results you're trying to achieve. So I don't want to reinvent the wheel, and I want somebody to push me. So you go figure out who's really the best at doing this, and I'm going to hook my star up with them because they're going to help us be better, but we're going to do it the way our community knows that works for us. First thing, 2Gen lens. What am I doing? How do I bring that 2Gen lens to it? How have I incorporated the voices of those that we are working with and talked with them? Who am I going to partner with? Who out there is going to help me be better to accomplish the results that ultimately we are going to move more families forward to be economically stable, and we're going to have this most educated workforce population. Just think what that means for our civil society. I mean, I'm using words like that, but ultimately, if we can empower through education, our kids reading at 3rd grade, we know the doors that opens and get more families stable. What that does for families to flourish in our community, wow. I think we have brought purposefully elected officials, policymakers. There are policies that can help align. Policymakers want that too. So I think, how do we look at what the right policies are? Do we have the right practices, the way we're making that happen? One thing that we have also talked about, and I think it's a critical point, oftentimes it's not we need more money. Are we using the money we have in the right way? Are we stopping doing things that don't work? Do we have the courage to do that? So I think we all have to start changing how we think. I obviously sit in a seat of privilege with funding, has a large community foundation. We look all the time, what do we need to stop doing? Is this the most effective thing to be funding? Is our government asking that? Are our agencies asking that? So I think we have opportunities on, do we have the right policies, and not forget how important advocacy can be, because it does take all the sectors together, the public, private, and independent sector, to make this work. So we sometimes get siloed in our sector, and that's why this purposeful invitation-only event had multiple sectors here.
Right. Boys and Girls Clubs of Sarasota County is proud to be part of this summit, and the fact that we could host it here is just amazing. The two-generational approach is something new to us. We've only been involved for the last year through our partner, the Community Foundation of Sarasota. But when we took a look at it, it was an area we had to really focus on and start looking at things through the 2Gen lens. I can keep going. Yeah, we've been serving children in Sarasota County for 45 years. We serve over 5,000 young people, and do a good job with youth programs, but we really needed to take it to the next level. And then when you look at our kids and you see that over 80% of our kids are living in low income situations, something has to be done. And bringing their parents into it is the approach that we needed to go with. Yeah, the power of teaching two generations at the same time is amazing. The young people are inspired because their parents are doing it, and the parents are inspired because their children are doing it. So we've seen amazing results by that. We've also seen resources that the parents didn't know that were available, but now they know it's available because of us taking a look at things through the two-gen lens. Yeah, the approach is being accepted throughout our community, and we've really pushed it with our families. And to give you a quick example, we have a family, a single mom who was looking to get back into nursing school, and we asked, why aren't you doing it? Well, she didn't have her birth certificate. Now you think that would be a simple task, but we sent a social worker into the home with her, helped her get online, get the birth certificate from the state of New York. Now she has it. Now she's back in nursing school. And I don't think she would have done it without that extra step from our social worker. My message to the community would be, get behind this two-generational approach, look at things through the two-gen lens. Our children, a lot of us like us just serving children, or if you're just serving the elderly, but when you serve the entire family, it makes a difference. And like I said, it inspires both generations to get better.
Very good. Thank you, sir.
Well, this is two generations, and Big Brothers Big Sisters works a lot with intergenerational between our volunteers and our children. But this is really a focus on an added dimension for Big Brothers Big Sisters, which are our parents. We know our parents, and we know they have needs. And this summit really focuses on connecting our needs with our resources. Well, what we're really learning today is not only the impact of poverty, but how it impacts each individual, not only the parent, the child, but our community. And this two-gen summit says we need to really break that cycle of poverty. Well, I think our goals are really to broaden our focus and to broaden our so our goal really in Big Brothers Big Sisters today at this summit and moving forward is to broaden our focus, not only to work with the child and the volunteer, but really have a more intentional and targeted approach in working with the parent as well. Well, I think what I see here today there are a lot of us service providers that maybe could work in a more intentional way together to collaborate with a lot of other services, not only to work with our parents, but our bigs and our littles as well. Well, I think our future with the two-gen approach is, first of all, the conversation doesn't end today. It doesn't end today for Big Brothers Big Sisters, and it certainly doesn't end for our community. So our community foundation has really launched a conversation that it needs to continue, and also convening all of us service providers together. I know internally that we'll be looking at a two-generation approach much more closely. Well, I think first of all, the message we need to send our community is that we understand there is poverty in Sarasota and Manatee counties, and that we are here as community-based organizations, as service providers, to work together to end. Well, I think it's an exciting time to come together to really understand what other opportunities, what other social capital is out there for our families, and to really begin to work together to end generational poverty.
I have to share with you before some closing thoughts and comments. We had a group at the foundation to meet the fellows and Ann last night. We probably had 70, 80 donors there, and we had Cedric and the spoken word with 3 of the sons there. We heard from Z and Austin and Robert, and they shared with us the kind of dad they're going to be. So it was not a dry eye in the room, and what was so cool is they were so empowered and just really embraced by the room. And fast forward to now, Anne mostly was talking about, well, I worked at the Kellogg Foundation and I oversaw $150 million every year. And so she went on and the fellows shared and questions. And he raises his hand. You talked about all that money. We're building a new school. Could we have some of that money? So I loved it. He was proactive, and Marlo Turner, our development director, talked to him and said, you're going to be good in development. So she said, here's my card. When you're 13, you can be an intern with us. So he's leaving, and I'm thanking him for being there, and he said, well, I'm going to work here when I'm 13. I'm like, well, okay. He said, Miss Marlowe said it, so I know he is. So I share that story, but isn't that one of hope, of opportunity, of the 2-gen lens? I thank you all. You know, it was the Kool-Aid you drank. There's a little something in the water, the coffee, and everything you drank. Because when you walked in here yesterday, my hope was you'd stay till today. Thank you for doing that. But more importantly, the 2-gen lens, when we say it, we don't even have to say 2-generation. When we say it, you look at what you do and you think, how could I do that through the lens of 2 generations? And why is that important for me to do that? So think about what you can do, and then what have we learned? Who can I do it with? Gosh, I got partners here that can do it with me. So think about that as well. And more importantly, what we always try to do is ask and listen to all the voices that can help us accomplish what do we want? We want a community that everyone thrives. It's one of opportunity. It's one of hope. So we use those words frequently. We ask and we listen, and we complete surveys. So did John say that? But the reason I want to reinforce that, because that's really important for us to, what do we do next? And you all have great ideas. So we're asking you, and we're going to listen. And with you, we will figure out what's next. We truly have a North Star, if you will. And I don't know quite what this number is. Our board task force will come back. But let's say in 10 years, we want another 5,000 families to be economically secure. And we really want every 3rd grader reading at the 3rd grade level by the end of 3rd grade. It's not good enough if it's not every one of them. So think about the work and efforts we do. If that happened in this community, wow. It would flourish even more so for everyone who chooses to live here. So as I think about what Anne's is their leadership's in this room. You're the spark plugs. You're all here. You drank the quote-unquote Kool-Aid. But talk about leadership, collaboration, and will. And my gosh, this room is buzzing with it. I think so many of us you feel it and you don't want it to end. So remember what this feeling is like, what we're ultimately trying to accomplish, and how we do that together. I just cannot thank you enough for investing 2 days of your time. I know how busy you are, all the things you've got going on in your life, but you chose to be here. And to me, that is such a statement about how much you care and about how much what you do. I hope you're seeing your piece of the puzzle that will make this all work. So all of us are smarter than one of us. But I say that because not only what smarts you bring, but always ask yourself, who else is smart about this? The voices of our families, the voices of what your colleagues, and the voices of the others within this community. So I'm going to end with thank you to our Ascend Fellows who were such a key part of this program, for Barbara, for you being here. I just love what I learned from Anne's, her 3 Ps and one, policy, partnerships, practice, finance, and budget. And she reminded us sometimes it's not more money, it's just using that money you got a little bit better. So how can we think about that in the context of what do we stop doing so we can start doing something else? And I love the more you learn, the more you earn. So I think William shared that. So there were so many of those wonderful things that are sticking in our brains as we leave here. But more importantly, it's to Jen, what can I do? Listen to those voices. Answer that survey, and truly ask and listen. This room is filled with those that are, we're going to make this happen. Do you have any doubt? I don't. So go forth, speak to Gen language. You guys have got it now and all the lingo. And I cannot thank you enough. More importantly, John, what you and Kirsten did, they put this together. Because you know when you show up somewhere, you kind of hope it's going to be good, and you go into it with great excitement. But I hope you're leaving with that same enthusiasm that you came with. And truly, John, what you and Kirsten, I came back from Think Exchange and said, we're doing this. I didn't know how we were going to do it. I didn't know what it was going to look like. But I was so confident, John and Kirsten, and our great help and roadmap we got from Ascend that we would get there. So thank you all again, and I think we're done early. Unless, do you have one more? No. So, again, thanks to Boys and Girls Club, but more importantly, thank you for all of you and for what you're bringing in leadership, collaboration, and that will. Thank you.